Time is now 7 o'clock. I'll call this meeting to order. Everybody please quiet down. And Mr. Gibbs, please read the statement of compliance.
In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, Public Law 1975, Chapter 231, notice of this meeting has been properly advertised in the Daily Record and Suburban Trends. Its agenda has been posted at the appropriate locations, and a copy has been filed with the Pequannock Township Clerk.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Mr. Bloomer?
Here.
Mr. Cerisi?
Present.
Ms. Dempsey is absent. Mrs. Esposito?
Here.
Mr. Gittin?
Here.
Mr. McSweeney?
Here.
Mr. Pompeo?
Here.
Mr. Senek?
Here.
And Mrs. Shannon.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Will everyone please stand for the flag salute.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our October 7th meeting. First, you will notice that the board is wearing blue tonight. Today starts the week of respect, and we are wearing blue to support bullying prevention. Second, last week, our district welcomed the Morris County School Boards Association to PTHS for the first county meeting of the year. It was the first time Pequannock has hosted an SBA meeting, and we made an outstanding showing with great food by the Pomptonian and a fantastic performance by the Knockdaves. They sang the national anthem and Thriller by Michael Jackson, which blew the crowd away. Additionally, at the meeting, the board was presented with our plaque signifying our achievement of the highest level of board certification granted by the NJSBA, Carol E. Larson Master Board Certification. I have the plaque here tonight, and I'm going to now hand it to Dr. Portis. Will be hanging in the board office along with a picture that the board will take later tonight. Third, last weekend, I was able to attend the annual marching band competition, and once again, our band stole the show. The weather wasn't great, but it was an outstanding show, and I was lucky enough to present the trophy to one of the participants. And just so you can understand what I'm talking about, of an example of how great that it was, one of the bands played the 80s song, I Just Died in Your Arms Tonight. So I don't think I need to say any more. You all get the point. It was outstanding. Fourth, as you all know, the Veterans Wall Committee is hosting a dedication to the project on 11/17. There will be a public dedication at the high school, followed by a luncheon. Tickets for the luncheon may be purchased on 10/11 at the American Legion Post 242 from 6 to 8 o'clock, at the Hoedown on 10/19, or by emailing PTHS Alumni Veterans Wall Group at gmail.com, and then they're also on Facebook. Last, I want to wish those members of our community that celebrated it a very happy Rosh Hashanah and a happy Yom Kippur this coming weekend. And I will now pass the mic to Dr. Portis.
Thank you, Mr. Senek. I'm going to pass it over to Liliana for our student representative report.
Hi, how are you all? My name is Liliana Fosliou, for those of you who don't know me, and I'm now a senior this year. It is so nice to see you all again, and I can't wait for another great year. To start off, the students seem to be enjoying this change in schedule. In particular, I really like it. I like the classes that drop, which gives you more time to do homework, particularly not having gym one of those days. Last Tuesday, our tennis seniors were recognized for their senior night. Thank you to those who came out to support them, and we thank the seniors for their hard work over the last 4 years. Congratulations to the girls cross country team on winning their conference. Volleyball had their Dig Pink game this past Saturday. Girls volleyball also collected items for North Carolina to send to Operation Kindness, an organization in Lincoln Park that will be collecting donations from all over to send to communities who are struggling from the hurricane in North Carolina. Volleyball collected donations at their home games last week. The boys soccer game had their leukemia last Thursday and came out with a win of 2-1. All proceeds went to the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. The girls soccer team is having their pancreatic soccer game this Thursday, October 10th at 5 p.m. They will be supporting Team Jenny and Friends of Franco. This past Saturday, the class of 1974 was recognized at the football game for their 50th year reunion. The class of 1974 took a tour of the high school on Friday. PTHS also honored Pequannock community veterans and hosted the Marines and Army National Guard. Our boys fought hard out there, and our cheer team put on an excellent performance. The marching band performed two shows this past Saturday, taking first place in Old Bridge and at Lenape Valley High School. They will be taking their show to MetLife Stadium this Saturday. Good luck to all the fall sports teams and counties. Freshman class elections for student council were held 2 weeks ago. Thank you to all those who came out to run. On September 25th, the activity fair took place in the courtyard. This is where students could explore the different clubs PTHS has to offer and talk to student representatives from the clubs that they were interested in. On September 26th, PTHS had their back to school night where parents came to meet their kids' teachers and get to learn about what their kids will be learning in school. The peer leaders helped guide the parents to the right classroom that night. This past Friday, winter sports held their interest meetings after school. Coaches and players are excited for the new season, and I can't wait to see what they're going to do. The homecoming dance is Thursday, October 10th from 7:45 to 9:45. The theme is Hollywood Lights. The homecoming game will be on Friday, October 11th against Morris Catholic. PTHS hosted the SATs this past Saturday, and all sophomores and juniors will be taking the PSAT on Wednesday, October 16th. Student Council has worked hard in planning a spirit week for homecoming that has started today. Today's theme was pajamas, tomorrow's is country versus country club, and then Wednesday's a pink out, and then Thursday is dress as your school color day. Hall decorating will be taking place this Wednesday night. Also, the fall pep rally will be taking place on Thursday, October 10th at the end of the day. The seniors in the band will be recognized before the football game this week. Thank you for the seniors for their hard work and dedication over the last 4 years. We will be having our homecoming game that evening where we will crown a homecoming king and queen at halftime. The guidance department hosted a college knowledge night this past Thursday to review the college application process with PTHS parents and students. It was well attended with important information. PTHS HASA is having a clothing drive Saturday, October 19th from 9 a.m. to 10 to 2 p.m. 8th graders should mark their calendars for their annual 4 years and beyond orientation program that would be held on October 24th at 7 p.m. here at the high school. Thank you all for your time, and I hope you have a great rest of your night.
That was packed. Well, outstanding report, Liliana, and I'm really proud. For a small school, we have an awful lot going on. And the great thing is we have the support from our students, obviously from our staff and our community as well. But it's exciting to hear all these things. So I thank you for that. Just a few things from my report as we begin week 2 of National Principals Month. And I'm going to point out there is no National Superintendent's Month. I'm happy to report that we are hitting our stride in all 5 schools. And I've heard positive reports from and observed great things in every school. I'd also like to take a moment to wish all members of our custodial maintenance team a happy National Custodian Workers Recognition Day from last week. Our buildings look great and are safe and clean for our students, staff, and community as a consequence of your hard work and dedication. So on behalf of the entire district, I'd like to thank you for that. As Liliana mentioned, we wrapped up our back to school nights with PTHS on Thursday, the 26th. I thought the peer helpers or peer leaders did a great job helping to guide people. I actually know my way around this building too. So it was kind of cool when people asked me where to go, I could tell them. At PV, I get very nervous when people ask because the numbers make no sense there. But I digress. But all schools reported great attendance for back to school nights. And I will repeat the message you've heard me say before, that the support we receive from families goes a long way towards enabling excellence in education, and that your attendance at these events is not lost on our students. Today, this is something that Liliana also touched on. It began our week of respect, which is part of our commitment to our character education program and overlaps with our anti-bullying measures. Today was celebrated as Blue Shirt Day across the nation and recognizes a unified effort against bullying. On Friday of this week, we'll have a full professional development day. Mr. Shea has been working very hard to organize that event, which is called the Tech Summit. And then all of our schools are closed on Monday. And I just want to add my own editorializing about Blue Shirt Day, which I think today provides a great opportunity to remind our students, staff, and families that you're never truly alone. I firmly believe that the best anti-bullying measure is to build up strong and compassionate citizens who feel a deep connection to their community. I want all our students to have confidence, to know that they have the strength to advocate for themselves and for others, and to be that person who is unafraid to seek help, whether for themselves or a peer. Every person in our buildings matters. So all of you matter. And we need to make sure that they know, they being our students, our staff, and our families, that they are valued. When you feel good about yourself, you're less likely to be cruel or mean to others. Likewise, you are also less likely to feel completely vulnerable to the cruelty and difficulties that we inevitably face throughout our lives. Life isn't easy, but we can all support one another to make the weight of things a little lighter. When we do that, we strengthen ourselves and one another. Yes, today is one day, but if we can celebrate the power of goodness and support today, we should be able to continue to live that message every day. So I just wanted to share that. I actually came up with the idea on Saturday when I was running. So I've been sitting on this one for 48 hours. But I'm excited for the day. I hope it goes a long way towards building some really positive habits. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Mr. Gibbs, do you have a report?
Yes. Good evening. First, I would like to congratulate the board on obtaining their master board certification. I know that the board and administration has worked very hard in obtaining this certification. So congratulations. Congratulations. There's a resolution on tonight's board agenda for the approval of a corrective action plan. The approval of the plan goes back to an error that occurred during the 2016 school year when the bid for work to be done on SJG was not properly adhered to in accordance with NJSA 18A, 18A-21A, that stipulates that a school district must wait the full 10 days from the advertisement date before opening the bids. The bid back in 2016 was opened on the 10th day, which means that the district was out of compliance as it did not wait the full 10 days. The district received $1,153,841.24 in School Development Authority or SDA grant money from the 2014-2016 grant years. The remaining $572,008.98 balance will be provided from the state upon the receipt of the board-approved correction plan. The total amount to be received is $1,725,850.22. The new playground at North Boulevard will be delivered, weather permitting, during the week of October 21st for the install. The new windows at the high school will be delivered the last week of December for the January install. It has been delayed due to manufacturing issues. The school's appraisal report was provided to the school on September 19th regarding 7 Industrial Road. A copy of that report has been shared with the board and is currently under consideration. The inspection report from the school's district's engineers on 7 Industrial Road is complete and has also been shared with the board as well. On September 17th, there was another Oprah request from a carpenters union for vendor and purchase order information as to construction projects. The request was completed on September 20th in accordance with state guidelines. The 2025-2026 budget process has started as the worksheets have been distributed to the schools and departments to begin the 2025-2026 budgeting process. It is anticipated that the board office will have the budgets back by November 15th. The 2025-2026 budget will have a significant increase in health insurance premiums due to the following rate increases. For the PPO or Preferred Provider Organization 10/15 policy is going up by 21.9%. The NJEHP or New Jersey Educators Health Plan is going up 8%. The GSHP or Garden State Health Plan is going up 8.3%. The new health insurance premium increases are set by the state and will go into effect January 1st, 2025. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gibbs. That brings us to our first opportunity for public comment. Members of the public may speak once for a maximum period of 5 minutes by the clock during this portion of the meeting. The public may speak on any agenda item only during their 5 minutes. And if a member of the public raises a question, direct that question to the board president and state your name and sign in before we begin. All right, seeing that there's none, I'm going to move into the approval of the action items. First up, we have PMC. That's Mr. Sam Cerisi. And Mr. Cerisi, would you please move the items under PMC?
I would like to move PMC 66-25 through PMC 76-25.
Second.
Any question or discussion? Mr. Gibbs, please call the roll.
Yes.
Mr. Cerisi,
Yes.
Ms. Dempsey,
Yes.
Mr. Gittin,
Yes.
Mr. McSweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Pompeo,
Yes.
Mrs. Shenton,
Yes.
Mrs. Esposito,
Yes.
and Mr. Senick.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next up is CIS. Mr. McSweeney, would you please move CIS?
Yes, I'd like to move CIS 25-25 through CIS 31-25.
Second.
All right, Bloomberg second. Before we approve these items or vote on them rather, there is a good amount of PD items in there, and I just wanted to ask Anne Marie if you could give us an overview of that. I think that the professional development opportunities provided are phenomenal, and I'd like the public to see the offerings that are being put forth, because I think it speaks to how much you guys are trying to develop the teachers and develop our staff, and it's a really good opportunity.
Sure. So we are having the tech summit on Thursday or Friday, which Matt Shea is going to speak a little bit about or we're going to give kudos to Matt for all the hard work he's doing. But we have a lot of teachers and administrators actually presenting, as well as other staff members. So there's a lot going on that day, all day long. We have a lot of sessions available. But we have teachers, Brenda Adams doing using Canva in the classroom. We have Kim Braun and Mike Seebeck, the neuroscience of learning. Chelsea DeLay and Samantha Struble are doing small group differentiated instruction. Denise Donch and Jessica Rentas are exploring EduPlanet, which is our curriculum platform. So they'll be talking about how teachers can use that more effectively. Mike Curtis is doing technology in the band and music platform, which is amazing because I've seen the piano studio with all the keyboards down there. There's a lot of amazing things going on at PV with music. Being a band parent myself, I'm super excited about that. Kim Lapino and Colin McBride are doing Magic School AI. Megan Laterzo and Melissa McNulty Dodd are doing engaging students and families with data and iReady. We have Megan Madison doing Exploring Ed Puzzle, and Adam Piccoli doing personalized PD and AI education strategies. So the whole day has a lot of heavy focus on AI. We have a keynote speaker who is, what is her name? Amanda Bickerstaff. She's from AI for Education, and she'll be doing our keynote in the morning. Sorry, it's upside down. And she'll also be doing a breakout session for us as well, talking about how to use AI more effectively in classroom and teaching practices. We have several administrators and supervisors, as well as some of our technology staff doing additional workshops as well. And then we also have outside professionals coming in. We have some of our vendors, Linkit will be presenting, Newline, those are our new, what do we call them? Are they projection board or Apple TVs? Interactive flat panel displays. So that's Newline. Like, how exactly do we explain those? Helping our teachers understand how to use those better. iReady, which is our diagnostic platform. We have them coming in doing workshops. Chris Dakin Stefanski from Walk Hill Valley Regional School is going to talk about AI and art. We also have Janet DeCenzo, who is another paid presenter from CTC Academy, which is a school up in Oakland that works with students with disabilities. She's coming in and doing 2 breakout sessions about how accessible our classrooms are. Dr. Murphy from Rivers Edge School District is going to talk about making connections with students. And Bruce Riker from Ramsey Public Schools is going to be using AI to help build a multimedia curriculum. So there's a lot going on Friday, which is amazing. And then we also this week on Wednesday have a presentation from a lawyer from NJPSA FEA, which is the Foundation for Educational Administration, for the New Jersey Principal and Supervisor Association. They do a ton of professional development in all different areas. And Mr. Worthington's going to talk with the administration, our child study team members and counselors on significant disproportionality and updates on implementing 504 plans more effectively.
Perfect. There's so much there. And when you look at the agenda for tonight and you see a couple line items about PD for this or PD for that, it doesn't really tell the story about how much opportunity is being offered in the wide range of topics that it covers, from special education to accessibility inside your classroom to AI, art, just outstanding. So thank you for sharing that. Good job.
If I could just interject too, I did reach out to my superintendent colleagues throughout the county to let them know that they have an open invitation if they'd like to come up at any point Friday to check out what we're doing, to sit down a few sessions. They're more than welcome to do so. So I think we're going to get a few more visitors / guests. And what I'm really excited is I do think that Matt, Shay, and Anne-Marie have a vision for really making this the marquee professional development event in the county. And if we can draw in a lot of our partners, it's only going to elevate the quality of what we can accomplish. So I'm really excited for it.
All right. Mr. Gibbs, please call the roll.
Mr. Bloomer,
Yes.
Mr. Cerisi,
Yes.
Ms. Dempsey,
Yes.
Mr. Gittin,
Yes.
Mr. McSweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Pompeo,
Yes.
Mrs. Shenton,
Yes.
Mrs. Esposito,
Yes.
and Mr. Senick.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, next up is FFA. Mr. Bloomer, would you please move FFA?
Discussion.
We got to move it first to discuss it.
I'd like to move FFA. I'd like to make a motion to move FFA 37-25 through FFA 41-25.
Second.
Sweeney second. Any question or discussion?
Yes, there is some discussion. So item resolution FFA 39-25 is the approval of a corrective action plan for reimbursement of a ROD grant. So this is something that the state notified us. I received a letter that was dated September 16th, notifying us that in 2016, there was a bid that was opened a day too early. There was only a 9-day full day period rather than a 10 full day period. As such, we were not in compliance with the regulations. Now, while neither Mr. Gibbs nor I was in the board office at the time, we still take responsibility for it as we are part of the continuum there. Mr. Gibbs worked to develop a corrective action plan that will ensure that we maintain compliance with that full 10-day period. We've demonstrated that over the past, I can tell you, 5 years that I've been superintendent, which has coincided with your 3 years so far in the district. But this is something that we'll remain committed to ensure that there are no infractions on our watch.
Yeah, we've actually incorporated it into our standard operating procedure. So there should be no issues in the future with respect to timing, yeah, on the opening of the bids.
Yeah, that's great. And along with that, FFA item 40-25, where the state's given us almost $1.2 million. And that's the first payment of another 500,000 that's coming along after it. Again, I said it at a past meeting. I just want to say it again. When I started on the board, we get the audit every year, and I would always see there was ROD money that was not being given to us by the state. And I'd always ask, when are we going to get it? When are we going to get it? And you got it, man. So outstanding job.
Hey, thank
Good
you.
work.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Gibbs, please call the roll.
Mr. Bloomer,
Yes.
Mr. Cerisi,
Yes.
Ms. Dempsey,
Yes.
Mr. Gitten,
Yes.
Mr. McSweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Pompeo,
Yes.
Mrs. Jensen,
Yes.
Mrs. Esposito,
Yes.
and Mr. Senick.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, that brings us into workshop, and the first topic in workshop is PMC. We have 3 items: school start time committee follow-up, the administrative goals for the 24-25 school year, and staffing update from Dr. Portis.
All right. All right. Thank you, Mr. Stanek. The first one, we have obviously had the school start time committee on a good number of agendas over the past 3 years. And obviously now we're in the implementation phase. So we didn't want to just implement without doing so mindfully and getting feedback from our critical stakeholders about how the process is going. We will be looking to send surveys out towards the end of October to get initial reactions from students, from staff, as well as from family members. And we're going to try to align those surveys so that they look as close to identical as possible. And we'll get responses on a Likert scale. We'll use an even number. This way people have to choose to be on either one side or the other. If you use an odd number, a lot of times people tend to drift into the middle. If you go even number, they have to pick, we're going to run a 4-point scale, either a 3 or a 2. And then also have an open-ended response. This is something that coincides with a board goal. So I do welcome board input as we generate those surveys. And again, we'll look to push those out towards the end of this month. Something that's been important at both the high school and the middle school is to really build a culture around the Panther periods at both schools. At PV, it is mandatory. Students have that block at the end of the day. It's not for new instruction. It is for reinforcement, for working in small groups, for targeting specific skills. And staff is working to find the best way to utilize that time. They're supporting one another. And this is something we know it's brand new. It's something that's pretty innovative. We know of one other district that has a similar schedule. And they said the first year was a lot of figuring it out. And then after that, it really took off. So we're hoping to figure it out and have it take off simultaneously. And then at the high school, it is optional at the end of the day for students who are in good academic standing. So far, the most recent data I got from Mr. Hazler was that we had 94 kids sign up using the Smart Pass app that they were going to go to see different teachers. And from talking to Mr. Foglio, who was walking the halls, he said probably double that number. I don't know if he was just being positive to make me feel good, but it worked. But that we're seeing a lot of kids who are taking advantage of the opportunity. I would like to see us get pretty much every kid taking advantage of it, but it's something that we're going to have to build towards. And our staff has been working with kids. They've been having kids come in to make up work that was not completed during class, and also using it as an opportunity to reteach lessons. It is best if the kids can sign up through the Smart Pass. This way the teachers know who to expect, but we have had, as I alluded to before, a lot of students who are popping in. But I'm really excited about this. I think it is something that gives back the gift of time, which in this school district, as well as anywhere else in life, is very difficult to get. And I was really happy to hear Liliana talk about how much she liked the rotating drop block as well. That was something I experienced as a teacher. When I came here in 2007, I had been teaching a rotating drop block for the previous 6 years, and I loved it. So when I came here for the very traditional schedule, it was a tough switch, and I wasn't used to teaching in 40-minute blocks. I was used to 56, which I found to be much more conducive to letting discussions unfold, and really, I felt like we could accomplish more. I don't know, were you gonna say something?
I was going to say something about the Panther block at PV,
Yeah.
at least with my middle schooler. I've seen so far, limited data here, but she'll be working on homework, gets frustrated, and I'll just like Panther block. She's like, and then she'll say, okay, that's my Panther block with that teacher is on Tuesday or Thursday or whatever it is. So she's kind of using it to not only alleviate the homework, struggle, but also to kind of plan ahead. She uses some time for homework, doing homework in the Panther block. And she seems to be using it, at least she tells me she's using it wisely. We'll see if what her grades come out of it, but it seems to be fulfilling a need so far.
That's great.
So I love that we have the Smart Pass data for the high school to see really how that's being used. How are we measuring the effectiveness or the success of the PV Panther block?
That has to be mostly qualitative, because we don't really have to worry about the Smart Pass because the kids have to be there. Like, they're assigned that these are your periods. But ultimately, the best data that we're going to get from that is going to be anecdotal feedback from students about their experiences, as well as for staff being able to identify. I was able to target these specific areas with this group of students, while this group was able to reteach to one another. So it's not, I don't see it as something that we can necessarily quantify. End of the day, if we see improved test scores, we'll know that multiple measures are taking effect. But we're going to have to rely a lot on the sense of what's being accomplished that kids feel, as well as if staff members are seeing it, because the teaching blocks are shorter, which they actually find is helping kids stay focused. And ideally, we'd like to see that limit issues with student lack of engagement, which usually results in behavior issues. But they seem to like the fact that they can revisit a teaching point that not everybody in the class may have gotten.
Yeah, and part of the reason I'm asking is because I've kind of heard like the flip side of it, which is like, why can't we use that period for another elective block instead of going back to something we've already had in the day?
Mhm.
So just how will we know that that's really the best use of that block of time versus being able to offer other alternatives?
Yeah, and this gets to a point that Mr. Jabrowski and I talked about in the spring, and it came up actually in a survey with staff members too. One person talked about if we could offer true enrichment, where you have students who don't need the remediation, who are actually looking for greater challenges. If we are able to offer them to work on, if they have an interest in art, to be able to do an art and literature project, if they want to work on an altered book, something like that. And I know Mrs. Chavarella is very well versed in that. We actually worked on a project like that many moons ago. But we do want to look to be able to afford some options in it. I think right now we're still in that figuring out phase, but I would love it if we could branch out that student A is going to be here because there's something that we're working on here, but student B's already demonstrated mastery. Student B should be able to do something that's going to be enriching and exciting for that student. We're just not there yet.
I just wanted to add that this is one of those first blocks in a multi-tiered system of support, which in New Jersey, we're really looking to build that so that it is something that we can have more differentiated for the students. And having a full period available to that allows, like Dr. Porter said, allows us to offer options for students within that zone that are on the extra help side, all the way up to addressing gifted and talented type of needs as well. But it is a first step to just even get that into a schedule before you can take that lunch.
Yeah, and we have, I feel like there we have the facilities too, and I don't want to get ahead of myself, but like even if we had a reading room or a reading group, we have great facilities in the media center that we could utilize for that as well. So there are certainly some ambitions that we'd like to be able to realize with that, and hopefully as time progresses and we do get some feedback, we can make those become a reality sooner rather than later. And then one thing I know we shared a report with you about tardies, the comparison between last year at this point and this year. We're finding is we've had a minimal decline across cohorts, looking at the students from grade 9 last year to grade 10, students from 10 to 11, as well as students from 11 to 12. Unfortunately, tardiness is generally a habit as opposed to something that is a one-time instance. So I wasn't too optimistic that the later start was going to really influence tardiness. We have seen some help there, but there were larger outcomes that we were hoping for. We have seen a handful of students who have improved their punctuality. I don't understand why you would be late for anything, but thank you. Yeah, but it still happens. But it's something that our admin team addresses and is maddeningly frustrating to me. Anything else about the school start time? Bless you.
Dr. Porter.
So,
My wife has a saying from me that she said she was going to buy me a t-shirt that said, if I wanted to be here, I'd be here on time.
And maybe don't
And
wear that one.
Probably goes along with exactly what's happened.
Yeah. And we know it, like you could start school at noon. Some people would still be late.
So I have a comment. I know that there was a lot of talk last year about crazy traffic in the morning at the high school. So last year I had 2 middle schoolers. I wasn't a part of seeing any of that. I have to say I haven't had any traffic problems getting my kid to school at the high school, like 0.0. I drive in, I pull up, she hops out, we keep going. So I don't know if that has to do with, I don't know if that's everyone's experience. But I think the later start time is also helps sort of dissipate that potentially, because kids are not rushing to get there at 7:10, and there's more of, a little bit of a gap. Yeah. Well, you got to get there early, right?
It's moments like this that I wish I had a really good poker face so I could tell you completely deadpan that was one of my goals in rolling out the later start time.
It's the fun unintended consequence.
There you go. But it sounds like a positive. It's one I'm pretty enthusiastic about.
I only get yelled at 15 times in the morning versus the old 30.
So now we have data showing improvement for Mr. Bloomer, which that was an intended.
Do you know the actual percentage that's down tardiness from last year to this year? I think you may have emailed it to us, but
It's I don't know if I tucked it in a backup, but there is a sheet that has. I can double check for it, but for it as an email.
Right.
So it's down. I mean, just going off memory, it's probably down about 3%. We're seeing fewer students who are, I'll call them habitual recidivists, which is people who are 3 or more. So we have seen that drop, I think, from 22 last year down to 16 for this year. So that is something we can hang our hats on, but I'd be much happier if it were 0%.
Yeah, I know we definitely don't have this data, nor do I expect us to, but I wonder if the amount of the tardy has changed. So as opposed to a student being 30 minutes late to maybe being 5 minutes late, just because maybe they always get to school at 8:10, but last year was a much more significant amount of learning loss than it is now. I wonder if that's potentially part, but I don't think we would have tracked that.
But something that was actually part of the intended outcomes was that if students are going to be late, they're not always late to the same class. So I used to teach first period, and I love teaching first period, except when I had students who were constantly late, they were missing first 5-6 minutes of class, which is a critical part of establishing the tenor for the day. So now at least that varies, and we know sometimes students have to leave early. You're not always missing 9th period. That's going to alternate. And I know with some sports, like I know hockey, we're tethered to when we can get rink time. So if you have to go to hockey, you're not always going to keep missing the same period. That's going to rotate. So I think that provides a benefit there.
Dr. Portis, for the, for PV, have you gotten any feedback on the homeroom and putting in the homeroom? Because I know that was another change we made too.
I know that just what I've heard anecdotally from Ms. Ringen and Mr. Zabrowski is they like it because they feel like it does have a nice settling effect on the kids, and also that they can push out some incentives. Like they're doing something right now with the homeroom that has the best on-time attendance is going to be able to get, I forget what the prize is, but they're going to get something out of it. So that I'm excited about, but I'd like to find out more because that was a shift, adding in a 5-minute
And
homeroom.
it's only 5 minutes, right? So
Only
I'm,
5.
I'm just curious how that time is being used and if there's value. And like, to my mind, 5 minutes seems like nothing, but I know schools are like so rigid to the minute that you can get a lot done in 5 minutes. So.
Yep. And one other thing too, that I was happy with, the first week when Ms. Ringen and Mr. Zabrowski were doing the class meetings, kids didn't have to miss any class time. It was taken out of the Panther block at the end of the day. So they were able to use that 40-something minute period to go through the class meeting. So there was 0 instructional minutes lost. So that to me is a win. And I know when we do assemblies, we're gonna be able to use that time as well. So that I think should prove beneficial. And we'll keep the conversation going because it was a pretty big leap on that we were all a part of undertaking that. And I think the community showed a lot of trust in us, which means a lot. And I use that word trust very intentionally. Faith is the belief in something for which you have no tangible evidence. Trust is belief in something for which you have evidence. And I think it was definitely trust. And I'd like for us to really demonstrate that trust was well placed or continue to show that. Sorry, that was a little too deep for the nature of this specific conversation. Which takes me over the administrative goals. I put in backup the 5 different examples of administrative goals that I shared with the principals, supervisors, directors, and our chief technology officer. And what I want to ensure is that our principals, directors, supervisors, chief are all setting goals that align with what's in our strategic plan, which runs from 2021 to 2026. And therefore is also aligned with our district goals. And what I want is, if you can picture the image of everybody pulling on a rope in the same direction, I want everything to be lined up together. So what we do with the admin team is give them a template for different goals that they can select. They can do 2 goals, they can do 3 goals. I don't worry about which number they choose, but they have to be lined up with actual things that are going to benefit our district that we've identified through the strategic plan and the district goal setting process of things that will be visible. So I gave them language to use. I also gave them math that they could employ, and then they could choose what to plug in. And to their credit, some of them decided with the walkthroughs goal to set higher numbers. And I checked them like, you sure you want to do this? And they are sure. So it's something I think is important for you as a board to see, and also for the public to know about, that we're not setting these goals with any degree of frivolousness. Like, these are very targeted and very intentionally designed.
Yeah, that's something I wanted to comment on. When I read through them, that's something that I noticed was how specific they were, down to like the number of students, the number of meetings. And I like the way that the conceptual goal at the top level is distilled down into something that's tangible and measurable. And I like the target of the goals: increased academics, increased community connection with the school, and pushing along the portrait of a graduate to develop that expectation of what kind of student that we wish to produce. I thought they were very good.
Thank you. I appreciate hearing that. And I do want to point out too, like, some of the goal behind presenting this as well is I want this to be an efficient process for the administrators. I don't want to have X number of people stewing about what to dream up for their goals. If I can hand it to them, and they can play around with the language. They have some latitude, not a lot, but some latitude within this. But I want it to be something where they can look at it and it's a meaningful, important goal that's probably taken 2 minutes of thought. Like it's just bam, here it is. I can put it right in there. And I want it to be more than an exercise in compliance because a lot of times in schools, you can get a lot of goals passed down to you and it just feels like, okay, I'm gonna check these boxes and okay, that's it. Excellent. Thank you. And then final thing, I think it's important to always bring updates about staffing. So in terms of staffing right now, we're entering round 2 of assistant principal interviews at PV this week. Mr. Sebrowski and the team are using what we call the process, which is very collaborative and brings in teachers, brings in parents, it brings in supervisors, as well as other principals as well. And Mr. Sebrowski had Mr. Hazler as his co-pilot to lead the charge. And so far they've gotten good input about the first round of candidates and they're taking care of round 2 this week. And then I'll be involved in round 3, at which point we should be able to narrow it down to one candidate who will present to you, ideally in time for approval at the October 28th meeting. So if that person has to give 60 days somewhere, we'll have them in place for January 1st. And we have internal coverage set up for the meantime. Ms. Ringen will be here until the teachers convention week. So she'll work that 3-day week. So in that, we'll call it like an interregnum. We have coverage already set up, so we'll be able to assist Mr. Sebrowski with making sure that PV runs smoothly. We also posted a position for a leave replacement for math. This one's going to be tough to fill, but we've struck gold a few times with people who are retirees who are interested in coming back for a short gig. We're hoping to have that happen again, but we have that pushed out there. If you know of anybody in your worlds who might be interested in returning to the classroom to teach math to middle schoolers, it's just as exciting as it sounds, but definitely something worth reaching out about. We have an opening for a speech therapist, which is listed right now as anticipated, as we have not yet approved. Actually, no, we just approved the resignation, so it's official. And then I'll put it out there too that we always need aides, and we also always need lunch aides. If you're interested in something that has some pretty flexible hours, those are both opportunities. And I will say that being a lunch aide is the greatest appetite suppressant in the world. When you watch small children eat, you will never want to eat again. Yeah, thought I'd share. Anyway, any questions about either staffing or anything else we covered here?
All right, moving on to CIS, 3 discussion topics, the STEM Aviation Academy and a curriculum and instruction committee meeting follow-up, the tech summit, which we heard a little bit about earlier in the meeting, and then the Pequannock Library connection.
So we're going to have Ed Kopp, he's our supervisor of STEM, aviation, and science, explain the evolution of our STEM and Aviation Academy into what currently we are playing with the name Academy of Applied Sciences. So.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to speak on kind of the behalf of the academy, as we are proposing somewhat of a transition or an evolution in order to benefit our students in the long run, as far as trying to create opportunities for them beyond high school. And we've come across some challenges over the last couple of years as far as enrollment is concerned with our Aviation Academy in particular, but also our enrollment in our STEM Academy. So the plan here would be to merge those two into a singular umbrella academy and look to offer just a greater variety of courses that will better impact our students beyond high school. Do you want me to go through like the whole thing here? Or? Okay.
So I'll just step in too and say I think it's important to talk about what we're looking to phase in, and that this is largely in response to recognizing that we have to be fluid as our enrollment has proven to be fluid, as has the job market that we're trying to prepare students for. Obviously, students in these academy programs will be moving on to college, but We want to give them as much training as possible. And something too, I just want to put it out there. I think it's very interesting. So we're going to be talking about AI later. Is Mr. McSweeney was able to utilize an AI program to generate meeting minutes that were, by and large, very accurate. There was one reference to another high school as the Putin High School, which pretty funny. But I thought the technology was great that you were able to roll into generating minutes.
Yeah, it was very helpful. As we sent it, so everybody knows, we sent a CIS committee report to the board members. We met last Monday for about an hour, and the bullet points were pretty accurate. We discussed, most of the discussion was about the academies. We discussed some other topics as well, which we can talk about afterwards. But the report AI kind of summed it up pretty well for us.
All right, so I'm in looking at the current jobs report for the year 2024. U.S. News reported that 47% of the top 100 jobs are in healthcare. Obviously, that is covered by our Allied Health Academy that we offer here. 25% are in the STEM, and I'm including some of the kind of mechanics and repair guys and pilots and all of those things under the umbrella of the STEM percentage of those types of careers. 15% are other, and another 10% are in business and finance. So, between our STEM and Allied Health Academies, we are covering about 3/4 of the top 100 jobs in those academies. And that positions us as a district in a way that offers opportunities that most other schools do not offer. I mean, we are one of the few, if not only, high schools that offer both an Allied Health and a STEM academy, certainly in the state of New Jersey. So in looking at our enrollment, what we're trying to do is broaden the scope. Right now, the Aviation Academy's primary focus was to have students sit down and pass the FAA written test to become a private pilot. And with that narrow scope, we're not capturing as many students in joining that academy out of 8th grade. I mean, it's pretty remarkable if any student knows exactly what they want to do coming out of 8th grade, let alone to sit down and become a pilot. So even with our best efforts in promoting and trying to recruit students, not only from Pequannock Valley Middle School, but also from other local middle schools such as Lincoln Park, we are facing kind of a shortage of students who actually want to be in those seats pursuing that opportunity. So obviously we need to expand the scope and sequence of those courses. Our STEM Academy itself has been a very popular program, although, STEM is not quite as attractive. It used to be a very hot buzzword 10 years ago, and that has somewhat waned. And so we aren't producing pilots and engineers specifically. What we're trying to do is broaden the scope and offer as many opportunities to students as possible in those fields, whether it is in data science or in aerospace or in being a pilot or a drone pilot, or, even if somebody wanted to pursue being, a diesel mechanic or work on an airplane. What we're trying to do is expose those students to those opportunities, because those are the kind of the hot jobs of tomorrow. And of course, it's very difficult when you have an incoming 8th grader or an incoming freshman in a high school, even predicting where that job market might be in 4 years, let alone 8 years, let alone, 10 or 12, depending on their graduate or postdoc work. So our ability to prepare them for kind of the fundamentals of what those things have to offer, I think, is where we need to direct our attention and lay the foundation and habits of mind and exposure to those types of careers. So that's really kind of the broad picture of what we're trying to accomplish in our evolution of merging these two academies together, giving the students as many opportunities as possible across multi dimensions and really focus on career paths. We've done a really excellent job of bringing seasoned professionals either by Zoom or in person in the school, exposing the students. Last Friday, we had Warren County Community College. We're driving around Spot, the Boston Dynamics robot, right around the high school in the cafeteria. We had a drone flying around. We had a civil engineer zoom in to our freshman STEM class. We've had retired pilots, a local community members. Steve O'Neill visited our freshman aviation students. So trying to connect, right, the members of the community, whether it's in Pequannock or a little bit beyond that, and have students see that they have those possibilities. I know we have kind of limited experience certainly when I was that age. I'd never set foot in a warehouse or saw a robotic arm work, and yet we're doing that with our STEM kids. We're getting them off campus, and we went to the air traffic control tower at Newark Airport. We've been to Morristown Airport, and these kids have sat on a private jet and experienced the same feeling of what it's like to walk on that plane where Tom Cruise was just the week before. So anyway, that's kind of the broad vision. I would love to take some questions, and I mean, I can certainly direct it towards a more focused idea of where we would love to make this thing go, but I don't know that it's prudent to kind of have a super detailed vision for what it's going to look like 5 years from now. What we really want to do is kind of field some questions and make sure that we're on a solid footing starting next year for our incoming freshmen. We're going to maintain the program as is for our current sophomores and then juniors and then seniors as they work their way through, and start to look into and do some research as to what's the best plan moving forward for what kind of curricula, resources, staffing, et cetera, that we're going to need to have our students sit down and experience.
So that was going to be my question, whether you were going to have the students that are in the programs now be able to complete their studies and then graduate from the academy that they signed up for. And you said we are, so that's good.
Yes, our current students already who have been applied and accepted into the STEM and Aviation Academy are going to roll through their primary coursework with no changes to their programs. So this is only for potential future students who are in middle school currently.
So I have a question. Thank you. This was really helpful. And this one page was great. I was reading it at home, and if you could just maybe touch on, like, there was option 1 and option 2 and the thought process behind that, because I understand obviously option 2. Like if we're already having problems with numbers in option 1 and then you sort of bifurcate it, then how does that work and what does that look like?
Absolutely. Chris, do you mind going to the next slide, please? Thanks, sir. So in option 1, does not allow for any student choice. That is the sequence. So what we're doing is, instead of offering full year courses, we would like to make them semester based. That way students, again, instead of just taking 4 courses, they would end up taking 8. So they're exposed to broader array of opportunities and topics. They may not be able to go as deep, but they certainly will get what we're trying to do is in high school is spark the interest of a kid who may take that baton and run with it for the rest of their career. We're not necessarily trying to create engineers coming out of high school. So option 1 is really direct. It's focused. It really depends on whether it's our staffing issues and other things. So that is just a kind of direct approach to some of the topics that we'd like to offer our current STEM kids. The aviation kids would be folded into that. And of course, we would love to, if you look at option 2, allow for some student choice where there's different pathways. They would get different core to graduation, and they would have essentially what would be, if you were to think of like kind of the college paradigm, they're going to have a concentration or a major in one of those 3 areas that is supported by some of the electives outside of their area. So a STEM kid can take some aviation classes, or an aviation kid might be able to take some STEM and some technology classes that they currently have no ability to take. So that's really kind of the dream that I have with this, is to ensure that we're allowing students to get as broad of an exposure as possible, add in some student choice. And with this also allows the general student in the building, this opens up elective space for all of them to take a robotics course that right now they are not able to take at all. So if you're not in the STEM Academy, we don't offer robotics to our general students currently. And what we'd like to do is the academy version of it, would be a 1 semester, and there would be an open elective to the general student body if they were super interested in that, to be able to sit down and take it. So that's going to increase our enrollment. So we may have still a smaller enrollment for academy students, as you saw on the first slide, but kind of a broader opportunity for all students in the district to be able to kind of sit in and experience even just a sampling of what the academies are currently offering.
I have
this
a
would-
handful of questions, if I may. And it doesn't have to just be you who answers, but the first one I had after looking at this, preparing for this, what are the numbers for the Health Academy by grade in comparison to the two other academies?
So my understanding is that we have I can give you some of the enrollment numbers. We take about 25 students that are full-time students. So we fill one full section of students. Then there's the share time, which comes from Morris County, VOTEC, and I'm not sure exactly what those are, but maybe it's 20, but those aren't Pequannock kids anyway.
Right.
We're kind of just hosting them. The 25-ish or so students is a blend of Pequannock students and Lincoln Park kids and maybe some other districts, whereas right now our Seminole Aviation Academies are only able to take Pequannock
Right.
Valley Middle School students.
Okay.
And just a quick note, and I can get you the actual numbers, but the Allied Health, so we'll get for the junior, senior share time academy, we cap out at 25 for the AM kids, 25 for the PM kids, and your homeschool determines whether you're an AM or PM eligible student, because, for logistics purposes, they can only send either in the morning or in the afternoon. But those are capped at 25 each. So we can bring in 50 juniors, 50 seniors from the share time each year. And then it varies a bit with enrollment. We still have Lincoln Park for Allied Health, but we can no longer get new students from Bloomingdale.
Right. No, I'd love to just see what those numbers look like in comparison for the full-time students, just to have that across the board. And then there is a note in here about the numbers plateauing for the Aviation Academy, besides the fact that we're going to lose future students. Is there any concern about doubling down on an academy that seems to be plateauing versus just maybe phasing that academy out and introducing a new academy over time? Has that been discussed?
Yeah, I mean, what we're doing is we're taking the best of the current Aviation Academy curricula through AOPA and really shrinking it down into about 2 courses and offering that as a potential pathway. But, again, it depends on our ability to have quality instruction. So pathway 1 up there is really what you just described, which is the elimination of the Aviation Academy and focusing our STEM Academy students. Just this is what we offer.
Okay.
Whereas pathway 2 will enable those students who are interested in possibly becoming a pilot or some sort of remote operator, allows them a pathway towards that. So, I mean, I guess that would be my answer.
And there is one of the drawbacks of being a smaller school too, is that we're limited in what we can offer, which is what part of why I really like the option 2, because it satisfies multiple needs. And admittedly, I do put pressure on the team here to ensure that the academies are sustainable. If you don't have kids, obviously they're not sustainable. So what I like about this vision that Mr. Kopp is sharing is that it satisfies those multiple, I'll call them pressure points, where if you're devising a schedule or generating a schedule, you want to keep classes that are at probably at least a dozen kids to 20 kids. Some of these are so specialized that they're much smaller. Like you might have a class of 5, which from a budget perspective is not great practice, but we're giving kids these tremendous opportunities that we promised them regarding either the STEM Academy or the Aviation Academy. I do like the fact that this is going to open up the aviation classes to kids who are not in the academy. So if somebody wants to learn more about drone use, they will have a chance to do that. But we've talked about it, and we're realistic that if these changes don't help to pump up interest in the Aviation Academy, it might fall by the wayside. Okay. Because there's no sense trying to drag something to the finish line when it just doesn't have the legs.
And then my final question, again, can be answered later, or at a later date, but was considering that we do have staff for the healthcare academy, kind of leaning in that way with STEM as far as maybe biomedical engineering, which is a huge need in the United States. A lot of people have to go to the military to get those training, believe it or not, in the US, and as opposed to few colleges. I think there's only 1 or 2 colleges in the state of New Jersey that actually offer quality biomedical engineering jobs, Stevens being one of them that has something like a 98% accepted job rate when you graduate. Has there been any discussion as far as taking some of that STEM and merging it with the existing healthcare teachers to create a kind of a biomedical engineering?
I mean, this is something we would obviously love to be able to offer. Something that we've considered, obviously, with whether it's prosthetics or, some orthopedic surgery, a lot of that's done via, laser surgery is not really done with scalpel so much anymore. However, the allied health program right now has a pretty rigid and kind of stuck course sequence. There's not a lot of opportunity for wiggle room outside of what they currently have. That's not to say that we couldn't have a unit built into an allied health course or something that does infuse some of the topics that are in our curricula here. And certainly the allied health program and iterating it for the best interest of those students is always on the radar. And obviously, that's on for Ms. Murata and Ms. Van Sickle and Dr. Portis to talk about.
Also, I think the allied health program is run heavily by Rutgers. It's a particular sequence of courses and things they need to take. So, and as Mr. Kopp said, the rigidity of the courses and the sequence of the courses might not allow for that extra space there.
Yeah, just to be clear, I wasn't suggesting change the healthcare academy. I was saying maybe use STEM students to kind of lean into healthcare, understanding the anatomy for the designing of medical devices, biomedical engineering, type things, like you said, orthopedics, just using, caring and treating for devices that are used in the hospital on a regular basis, that every has a biomed department in the hospital across the street. So things like that from the STEM perspective versus changing anything with healthcare.
And I think like what's neat about that, if we go with option 2 and we have those elective options, and also I know we've been discussing aviation and aerospace, but actually in a lot of the conversations that we've had with Mr. Kopp, he has a broader vision for that second pathway that is really exciting and has more to do with even like formula race cars and trains and logistics and making it really broader as opposed to so narrow in the aviation. So that to me is somewhere that there might be more space to have some unique electives like that.
I definitely agree with you that our STEM academy or these STEM courses can go beyond just civil, mechanical. It's like we can electrical, aerospace. I mean, we can go into the biomedical as certainly a unit or a topic that's definitely applicable here. And like you said, all we're trying to do is just light the fire under 1 or 2 kids and let them, choose their own pathway from here. That's really our job, is to inspire and lay those foundations of habits and set them free.
I have another follow-up question. So 25, 26 sounds really far away, but when you need to be recruiting kids, it's not that far away. So sounds like there are a lot of decisions that still need to be made about this. And like, is it path 1? Is it path 2? What does that look like? Staffing? Do we sort of have a timeline that we've thought about that we're working towards? Any information?
Once this meeting adjourns, it's go time. And I'm not kidding either. And that was, we had a very intense meeting reviewing this. We had Mr. Fogler there representing what has to happen in guidance. Mr. Hazler obviously oversees everything. Ms. Manscole, Mr. Kopp. I think we had a couple other people in on the meeting. And ultimately, the timeline that we're working with is you as an elected body has to hear about this tonight. We led up to that by having the CIS meeting, which Mr. McSweeney ran, which I thought was a great opportunity to get the questions going and really kind of wrap our head around how do we present it. Now our next steps, we're looking at the recruiting of our own students, and then on a wider lens of how we're going to recruit students outside this district as well. But for this upcoming school year, it's starting right now. I'm very much keyed in on option 2, and I like to give people latitude to make decisions. And I still give that to Mr. Kopp and Ms. Manscole to make the best decision, which is option 2. I want them to own that. For those of you wanting a lesson in leading language, I just gave an excellent case study there. But yeah, we want our kids to be able to see, our current 8th graders to be able to see, these are things I'm going to be able to do if I participate in this. And what I like about the flexibility that they built in with the phase in, well, 2 things I really like about it. One is if we brought you in with a promise that we were going to deliver a program, we're going to still deliver that program. So the students who are currently a part of these academies are going to still get that. But as students are coming in, we have some flexibility and some wiggle room about more pathways that we can add. I would love to have what you were talking about. We're not gonna be able to touch the allied health teachers most likely because that's kind of a school within a school. But to be able to have kids perform reverse engineering on some type of medical apparatus would be a great, great learning opportunity. And I'm also showing off, one of the kids actually taught me what reverse engineering was at back to school night.
That's what I was gonna ask. So this kind of opens up opportunity where we would be restricted from certain coursework because we can't obviously duplicate certain academies if, whether it be Tech or another school has it, coursework is not restricted, right? So under this, we can have, I guess, pathways, the word you used.
Yep.
That does touch other, academies per se, right? Is that accurate?
Sure. I mean, once we have those students in that classroom and we have a board approved a curriculum that we think is in the best interest of those students,
Mhm.
then, I mean, we can take this in any direction we
Right.
want. There's no like copyright.
Right.
And like Allied Health has its own
Mhm.
rules and regulations under that kind of name. We created the STEM Academy and our Aviation Academy in our own likeness. I mean, we're somewhat bought into the AOPA curriculum as far as that offering for the Aviation Academy, and we are moving away from that particular sequence and locked into that and broadening the scope to be able to offer it and have the flexibility to evolve
Right.
based on need of our students. So
Wanted to comment on the what Mrs. Shenton brought up about the recruitment. Yeah, it is important to get to our own students, to our own PV eighth graders, to let them know that this is coming once we have a plan set. But also looking outside of the district, we've obviously lost some recruiting grounds with Lincoln Park not being able to come here. Is turning this into the Academy of Applied Sciences, are we going to be able to open that back up to those, or are they still going to be having to go to stay in their home district?
Yeah, that's something that's going to have to be a decision made at the board level for Lincoln Park as well. When the discussion came up about Boonton offering an aviation academy, we did present them a good amount of information about our program to help them determine if there was a material difference between what we were offering and what Boonton was offering. Mr. Kopp and I presented at one of their board meetings. I know we had a shared services committee meeting. We provided quite a bit of follow-up. Ultimately, they determined that the two programs are too similar. And that's why they decided, well, they really are supposed to send their kids to Boonton unless there is that material difference. I thought the fact that ours actually existed, where theirs were still in the idea status, was enough of a distinction, but that didn't suffice. I respect their decision. But yeah, I think that this could be a possibility that opens up, that if there are kids, bless you, in Lincoln Park who are currently in seventh grade who don't fit into those kind of tidy boxes of aviation or STEM, this might be an option for them. So it's something that we will have to present to our neighbors, and hopefully they find it something that would benefit their district as well as their students. And then I didn't close the door completely on Bloomingdale. I was admittedly frustrated about how that ultimately was determined and perhaps more importantly communicated, but they have a pretty firm agreement with Butler regarding sending there. But to me, if we can offer something to them that is so appealing to their kids that they see there being an enormous benefit, I'd love to see them.
Are there other districts we could go to farther away?
There are. Yeah, you don't want to spread your tentacles too far, although they're responsible for busing. But there are a few other neighbors who I'd like to reach out to and just say, like, look, even if it's something where they have a program that we can't offer and we could do an agreement to swap. We'll open up 5 spots for your kids. You open up 5 for ours. So I want to really pursue that. So I think once this really starts to take flight, which is going to be over the next few weeks, I can develop my sales pitch to some of our neighbors. And we did try to get, I'm sorry, one quick thing. We did try to get Morris County Vo-Tech involved with the Aviation Academy. They elected to go to a district that's much farther west in Morris County. So we did not win that.
I also like the option two. It gives much more choice. And you're talking to eighth graders who don't know what they want to do, and this opens up a lot to them. They could go down any number of different paths. I also like that this is, this is a little off, it is on topic, but we haven't discussed it yet. This is a true 4-year academy experience for students going into high school, whereas some of the Morris County academies are not. They're 3 years and then they all go to county college for the 4th year. And they're kind of disconnected from the school that they were at, whether they were at Morris County or they were at Morris Knolls or wherever the academy was, because all of their seniors also scattered and are now at county college, and they're going to school 1 day a week, 2 days a week, 3 days a week, maybe. And they're not connected to their homeschool much anymore, even though that we obviously welcome them back. But they senior sunrise and that senior year experience that a lot of our seniors get. A lot of the Morris County Academy students don't actually have that full 4-year experience. So I like this because it's a full 4-year program.
And that's something that I think is really important. And this gets to my philosophy as an educator, that it sounds like a long time. We've got them K-12 for 13 years, but it goes by really quickly. And I want our juniors and seniors to have these career-ready experiences, training, so that when they're preparing for that great beyond, that they're more prepared than their peers from any other district or any other state. But the reality is they're still kids. They're still high schoolers. And high school is an important experience. It's a growth opportunity. I mean, some of us probably would do it differently if we had a chance to redo it, but that's also the beauty of it. But you get 4 years to learn, to grow, to evolve. And so I do like the fact, to your point, this is an authentically high school experience that has a very strong focus on college preparation and career preparation, but it still lets you do senior sunrise, lets you be a kid.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I really like option 2 for the flexibility, especially as Mr. McSweeney said, when you're in 8th grade, you know that you like science, you know that you like STEM, but you don't necessarily know what you want to do. So the ability to have a student come in and take different classes, AutoCAD, robotics, remote operation of drones, data science. There's a wide range of things that can spark their interest. And it's kind of like you said, you put a spark in that student, and then who knows where they're going from that point forward, to which college or whatever, but you're lighting the flame that might carry them into a really great career. I did want to correct one thing that Mr. Pompeo said. NJIT has an outstanding biomechanical engineering program. So I just wanted to make that known. It's not just Stevens, that's all.
My father went there when it was the Newark School of Engineering. So if he ever watched any of these meetings, I'd be in big trouble. So my apologies.
Send me his email address. I'm going to forward him this link.
So just following on some of the comments, and I also really like option 2 for the flexibility it gives to students. I will note, and I'm sure you're all well aware of this, that requires really high quality advising, because just as these 8th graders don't know what they want to do coming out of 8th grade, even once they're in these pathways, they'll still be very like, I don't know which one to, the overwhelming choice. So, I think we want to make sure that all of our teachers and counselors are prepared for that. But I do think option 2 gives us that ability to really differentiate this academy from the other existing ones that we've now felt like we've started to compete against, other STEM academies. So I think you can really make it unique in that way and have it as with the pathways. It's something that you cannot get that kind of a education in other academies. And I know I sent this to Mr. McSweeney, but I would encourage you to think about the name of it. And is it real? I know we want it to be accurate, but is it in capturing what the students are going to get out of it? And do they understand what applied sciences is? I think most people will go, don't we apply all science to something? And so how is this a different science from the theoretical sciences? Where was I go? Oh, and I know that through some of the notes we had, it was abbreviated AAS, and coming from a community college background, that's an Associates of Applied Science, which is an actual degree. And to Mr. McSweeney's point, I think some of the students that do the Morris County programs and then spend their 4th year at the college, you graduate with an associate's degree. So I think we just want to be careful about making that distinction and not confusing people in that way.
During the committee meeting, we discussed calling it the Awesome Academy of Applied Sciences. I think it was Dr. Portis, or
Yeah,
the
that's
Elite
an AA,
Academy of Applied
yes.
Sciences. So I think
Although you
a healthy
say that
marketing.
all out real slow and it's going to end up with an entirely different name.
I think we need to put some marketing spin on it.
I bet you ChatGPT could name it something good.
Probably could.
I'd be interested to know what the students who are currently in the two academies would call it. But maybe that's opening a can of worms.
I just, one follow-up question, and I promise I'll stop asking. I like option 2 as well. And I'm wondering if we're here 5 years later, 10 years later, and one of the tracks is not as popular, it's a much easier change to phase out a single track and replace it with something else than having to redo the whole academy itself, correct?
I just wanted to add, assuming this is the direction we want to go in, there is some connection to what we already do at PV as far as our elective courses that are offered there. And as far as advertising and promoting the academies itself, I think that's the place where we need to do that for grade 6, 7, and 8 in order to, right now they're only 1 marking period long, but we just added Spheros and a few other things that are more remote control, more computer programming. You have the Legos with a drag and drop. And anyway, I think that's the place where we can really kind of generate the excitement in those students that they know what the academy is going to be about, just at another level higher. So
I also prefer option 2. I do want to just make sure that we all understand that it has been hard to staff some of these positions over the last few years. And so before we embark on something that we may not be able to staff, I just want to make sure that we're very careful and we consider that too.
Absolutely. And this is something that I'm really excited about directly with the option 2. And it's funny because there is something else already on the books called option 2. So we probably need a better name for that too. So the option of awesomeness, perhaps. But when Mr. Kopp was talking about this, he brought up some conversations he's had with staff members about some of the possible courses that they could be teaching. And some of the reactions were more or less like, wait, I can teach that. And so when educators are passionate, they obviously see greater value in their work. So I feel like this option, with the flexibility that we have in it, it has a very fluid design. And I'll say, and this is a huge compliment, I feel like Ed dreams very big dreams. And I feel like this is going to enable him to have that long range vision to say, okay, we can't do this next year, but 3 years down the pike, this is something I'm looking to build towards. And as we start to learn more about what our 6th and 7th graders and 8th graders are interested in doing, we can adapt and modify as well. Because with the aviation, and I was here for the launch of that, we didn't survey our community to find out, are people really interested in this? And we kind of found out the hard way that there's a shortage of pilots because not a lot of young people are interested in it. And so I don't want to repeat the mistakes of the past, and I want to be able to tap into what are the real interests. So we've got the job market angle played really well. Let's make sure we're also getting the interest side. But if you've got staff members who are passionately engaged with the content that they're teaching, word gets out. And that tends to be one of your greatest recruiting tools as well.
And to your point before about like, do we have to have it all together before we start talking about it? What Mr. Kopp has kind of put together is our FAST course would be for those 9th graders next year, which combines both the fundamentals of applied sciences and fundamentals of technology into course. So instead of the STEM students taking one and the aviation students the other, they're all going to take both. And so it's really, that is what we need to get in place right now for next year's program of studies. And then that gives us this year to actually build out the rest of it and then bring that back. Like, this is what we're going to do, and then build out that program of studies. So it is a phasing.
100%. We need to have that really buttoned down. But if I'm a parent putting my kid in the program, I want to know what every year looks like also. So we need at least a very almost buttoned down idea.
It will look like awesomeness, which will be more defined than that.
All right, anybody else? So on this topic, I thought, You guys did a phenomenal job presenting it. Mr. Cobb, I think it might be the first time you came here to present to us. Great job. Thanks for all the information. Much appreciated.
Just earned a biweekly spot. Congratulations.
Yes, correct. And we're gonna move on now. We're gonna move on now to the Tech Summit.
I think Matt Shea is going to take your spot.
And I think Matt Shea is going to talk.
Chris, am I on? All right. Well, someone stole some of my thunder earlier talking about all the different workshops that we were going to be putting on. The goal of this all kind of started in May when my previous boss, Beth Sheridan, was like, Matt, we want you to plan the October in-service. Good luck. And I was like, okay, all right, we're doing this. And fortunately, you know, Ed, the other supervisors, Jill Murata, Alyssa Bellardino, everyone's been just a huge helping, you know, piece this together. My staff, Chris back here, and some of the rest of my team also like bravely stepped forward to put on some workshops. You know, and the goal, you know, my goal for every in-service is that we're offering something for everyone in the building. So even though, yes, it's a tech summit and I was like, hey, we should do a big focus on AI. We tried to offer something for music, something for art, something for the case managers, something for special ed, something for math, inner orbit for science. So we really tried to have something for everybody, and then some just, you know, general tools to add to their tool belt, like Canva, Edpuzzle, you know, some day-to-day tools that they can use in their classrooms, some teaching strategies, you know, that like small group differentiated instruction. And we kicked around one for understanding by design. You know, we were just trying to build a day where there was going to be some, you know, a little something for everybody. And not have, and this is coming from the tech guy, not have a very heavy-handed, you know, like tech, you know, me pounding tech over their heads. So if that's not what they think is important in their class for their particular students at that time, you know, there's a wide variety to choose from. Of course, the hot topic, and I don't know if I'm going to be jumping the shark here to the other thing that you're going to be discussing tonight, which is AI. Is AI in education, and what does that look like? What is it starting to form out to be? You know, I think you know, even a year ago, we were all scratching our heads saying, okay, what does this look like? What does Chat GPT mean? What does it mean for education? And now it's starting to like form into something. So I had the privilege last year when you all sent me to Texpo, the NJASA Texpo conference. One of the keynote speakers was Amanda Bickerstaff from AI for Education. And there I was like, wow, this is really good delivery, a really good message. Because she really brings it down to a classroom level and what can AI look like in the classroom. And her foundation that she helped found really focuses on like, what are some prompts teachers can use? What are, you know, how can you use it with lesson planning? They even have a policy workshop. So it might be something we revisit again when we talk about an AI committee. So I thought that would be a great way to kind of springboard the day off with that keynote, have her do that breakout session afterwards for someone that says, boy, I really want to hear more about that. We have so many, we actually started cutting back on AI workshops that day because we were having so many AI workshops. I was like, well, we should offer some more things. So that was kind of just the idea behind that day. Besides just the tech summit, you know, it's been my focus, the focus of all the other supervisors. Certainly Anne Marie's been supportive of just trying to offer more PD in general. My observation, and again, I just had my 1-year anniversary. Thank you for keeping me. So part of my observation from last year was we had all this technology. We didn't want for technology, but I found like, was it being effectively used in the classroom and being delivered to the students? And I found there was kind of a disconnect where we got some of that technology put in the classroom and said, all right, you know, hopefully you'll figure out a way to use it. I would love to say, I'd love to bring on an instructional coach or a tech coach. That's a later conversation. But so in the meantime, I've kind of like voluntarily made my staff. Yeah, sorry, I didn't tell the superintendent of the schools I was going to make that pitch. But I've kind of you know, unofficially made my staff part of that tech coaching. So now, you know, you'll see on that day, Chris Schultz is doing something on everything you need to know about MacBooks. We're doing my Steve Fitzsimmons in my department is going to talk about securely classroom and how to massively manage Chromebooks in your classroom. So we're trying to kind of fulfill that role of not only are we just buying a bunch of tech and fixing it, we're also going to support it and show teachers how to use that tech in the classroom to effectively help the students. So that's a little summary of Tech Summit and kind of our PD at large. The new line, for one example of that, the new line training we bought, you can talk to me later about how Gordon and I made this budgeting work, but we replaced 95 classrooms this summer with the new line interactive flat panel displays, which was a massive undertaking and was really our big summer project. But we wanted to make sure that teachers didn't walk in the first week of school and say, what is this thing? What do I do with this? So we offered summer workshops that, a number of teachers took advantage of, which is always awesome because they're coming here voluntarily in the summertime to do learning. The first 2 in-service days, we did training for those new lines. This Friday, New Line, we spent enough money that they sent us a free trainer. New Line is coming out to do 3 more workshops this Friday. We're going to continue to do training. So far, it's been very well received by the teachers. But it's that kind of like ongoing professional development, the faculty meetings, the department meetings for the future. We're already planning out October 22nd. I'm already looking past, this 11th in service. It's just really ongoing PD to make sure the teachers have what they need when they need it. So any questions about the Tech Summit or PD at large?
The new line displays, I was looking at them at back to school night. I thought the teachers seemed to love them. They're so cool, phenomenal.
They really, the technology, I could stand here for an hour and a half talking about how amazing they are and how much, but compared to the old school 2007 smart boards, these like blow that away. Like today we were just helping a teacher at PV with the new line board. You can broadcast to a student. So whatever's on the display, you can broadcast to the student's Chromebook. We have a student with visual impairment that has a 14-inch touchscreen Chromebook. So what's on the board can be put onto his Chromebook and then he can pinch and zoom what he wants to see. So like we didn't have that capability before. So those are types of things. And the teachers are learning that. That's a complex skill. And she's only had the new line for a month. So it's pretty cool to see them using it, very specifically for the needs of their classrooms. So.
I just wanted to say over here, I have to admit, I'm very disappointed. I thought this presentation was going to come with lasers, a smoke show, maybe some superheroes. The screen's not even on. Yeah,
I didn't know how much you wanted.
Yeah,
so.
Dr. Portis, we're gonna have to talk after this meeting.
All right, I'll see what I can do. I tried to impress for the NJASA meeting that we hosted. I'm sorry, NJSBA, the school boards meeting that we hosted. We had 2 86-inch displays going at once with our new speaker system.
The music was bumping in there.
Yeah. So we've been trying to show off some of the new tech. I'm sorry I didn't show it off tonight, but
I think what Vinny would like to see is sharks with laser beams on their heads.
all right. I hear you, Doctor.
Yeah. Miss Shenton has said kittens with laser beams, please.
I could bring kittens. We could put on my YouTube. There's kittens right now on my YouTube. All right. But again, thank you for your support. And some of these were paid experiences. And so the board supporting our vision for, trying to get teachers what they need is very helpful. So thank you for that.
And something that I think does warrant stating too is that you got to the implementation gap that we often see where, and I experienced this when I was a teacher, where you get these great gadgets or it's great tech and it's powerful and great, but you don't know how to use it and you don't know who to go to. And something that I heard in my walkthroughs of the schools was people being really excited about the accessibility of your team as trainers who will follow up and be very patient with them as they try to learn the technology. And that despite the fact I'm pretty angry about the comment about having a tech coach, which just dropped in my lap about 12 minutes ago, Gordon's going to be okay.
I'm just planting a seed.
Well, that was a tough one. But the fact is that people feel like they can go to you for things. They can go to Chris, they can go to Allison, they can go to Steve. So that's really important. And that builds up their confidence. So the example you gave, which totally benefits our students, that happens when you have people who are accessible and relatable and really believe, yeah, this is going to help us out. And I joke about it, but from a budget perspective too, these new lines are not the just money suck that the smart boards were, because we don't have to buy the specific bulb that costs some ridiculous made up amount. So I'm enthusiastic on a number of levels, but I think it is a nice opportunity for you to hear that as a matter of public record, that the the culture of your team has definitely helped us implement things more readily.
I appreciate
But you're not getting a tech coach.
it. All right.
Yeah.
All right. We'll work on it, man. Yeah.
And apparently get the sharks with lasers in their heads, and then maybe.
All right. I'll see what I can do next time. Thank you all.
I just have one question, just a boring question. It's probably more for Mrs. Vansickle. The iReady for algebra, are we piloting that program or are we just giving an information session?
No, it's actually a pilot right now that the teachers can use. So they're getting training on that particular program within the platform. And Miss Murata actually spearheaded that and got that all set up in September. So they offer us professional development that comes with anything we get. So they're coming in. Our representative, Tony, is really personalized. He knows everybody. So he's going to come in and actually work with the teachers.
Okay, so
as
that's
well.
going to be piloted throughout the PV algebra classes and the PTHS.
I have to double check. It might just be one of the schools. It might not be both. I have to double check just
Okay.
because I'm not 100% sure, but I'll go back to you on that.
Because it's a brand new ninth grade program is what I am understanding. Or a brand new algebra program that they're
Just piece, yeah,
that they're
their
piloting.
program, right? They're expanding and moving up in
Uh-huh.
the grade levels. I'm just not 100% sure if we have it at both sites. I'll double
Okay.
check though.
Awesome. I'm really very excited about that. I'm curious to see what the teachers think and how it would improve our math skills and math scores.
Yes,
Thank you.
Me too on the math side. Love that. How about a math coach? Just
I
throwing it
said
out there.
instructional coach. We'll work on it, man.
I'm Can I
Next.
just say that being in this district for just this much of time, the team that that you all put together. The team of supervisors, the tech department, there's such smart people here. They're so passionate. They're so enthusiastic. That it's just really, really amazing to come in and work with these people. And their vision just makes me go, wow, I got to step up my game. So I just want to say that to all of them. So moving on to the next one.
All right. Thank you.
Pequannock Library Connection. So Matt, I need my screen to not time out so fast. That I have to fix. I tried to figure it out. So on to another supervisor. Alyssa Bellardino is our new ELA supervisor. And we had a reach out from the Pequannock Library saying they wanted to meet with our kindergarten teachers or our kindergartners and just get them library cards. Well, she took that and ran with it and actually now created this district-wide connection. That has nothing to do with me. Created this district-wide connection now with the Pequannock Library. She's already established a relationship with the, what is her name? Jessica Moskowitz. She's the head of children's services. She met with her. They've already planned out broader ideas that they're going to do with the kindergarten and the elementary schools having to do with the library. She's touched base with them on what they're doing for middle school and how they've opened up their space where the students can actually go after school and they get snacks and they get to be in that library space. And at the high school connection having to do with choice books and offering free access on 2 different platforms to our high schoolers called Hoopla and Libby. So she's just taken that and run with that. So we just wanted to kind of lift that up and say that with that community engagement, I know it's one of our district goals. That's one that she has is doing a great job with. So.
Awesome. Thank you. I just had a quick question about resolution, the approval of Title I tutoring facilitators. Are we only offering Title I at PVS at Pequannock Valley this year? What's the status of Title I for, I know we have to be implementing it.
Right.
shortly.
So it's only, so I'm coming into the ESEA grant right after it was written last year. We're only eligible to offer it to PV and high school because based on the requirements of free and reduced lunch and all of that. So we have identified some of the teachers who did it last year at PV, and Mr. Hazler's working on the teachers for the high school and how we can get them started and up and running. The high school is a little different because we're looking to possibly target specific timeframes that might be closer to like NGGPA and our needs that have to do with helping students make sure that's passed. So we're working that out right now. I actually met with him today for a little bit, but at PV, they should be up and running within a week or two. They just have to, we have to get the parent letters together and all that stuff out.
So
Okay, so
none of
just
the
the
elementary
only-
schools this year?
Yeah, so
Sorry.
only Pequannock, only the middle school qualifies for Title I based upon the free and reduced lunch.
And the high school.
Okay, and is that because we're not receiving any applications, or is it because, I mean, I guess that gets sticky, like, are people not putting in for it, or is that what we're thinking it is, or are we just not qualifying
It's
without getting into FERPA?
yeah, no, it's not enough applications. And I don't want to seem like a broken record, but I think it's so important to keep stressing to the community that this is a support that's put out there by the federal government. I mean, the state sends it out to us, but it's a great opportunity to make sure that kids are fed. And that's such an important thing, especially with a lot of people in communities throughout the state who are experiencing temporary financial or food insecurity. And there is that additional benefit of it really does help the district. It helps us get additional funding for these really great programs like Title I. So there are multiple benefits to people who fill out the paperwork and apply for free and reduced lunch. And I'll just stress it again that if your child is receiving a free or reduced lunch, it is not marked with an F or anything like that for free or an R for reduced. It is the same lunch that their peers are getting, same quality, same packaging, same everything. And then it's something that once you're in a better place, once you're on your feet, obviously then you would cease receiving it. But in the meantime, it's something that it helps enormously. So we do need more people if they're in that situation, or if you know people in that situation, to take advantage of it and apply.
Just so the public is aware, you cannot qualify for the PEA money, so the preschool expansion aid, which would give us free preschool. You cannot qualify you can't even apply for it until you've reached your tier level. So the more Title I services you receive or funds you receive, the higher likely of you getting the expansion money immediately.
Yeah, and the state just released $33 million more for the preschool expansion. I was actually going to bring it up in the unfinished business section, but this is a good opportunity for it as well. And Tier 4, which is where we are, has not gotten any consideration yet, and it's very likely will not get consideration for this round either. We're still going to put forth a good faith effort to try to secure that money, especially with our interest in expanding our pre-K program. But it's one more way that while people are being helped out by getting meals for their kids, they can also be helping out the district to make more things available for us.
Okay. I thought CIS was a phenomenal discussion. I wish all our meetings were like that. There's a lot of good topics, a lot of good discussion. Next item is FFA, 2 items. American Rescue Plan Homeless Children and Youth Grant. Bless you. And the Veterans Wall update.
Okay, that's me again. So we just wanted to point out that, so when you have students in the district who are homeless under the McKinney-Vento Act, you're required to provide transportation to them, transportation to the school of choice, and the district is responsible for covering that transportation. However, there was a grant that Dr. Sheridan had, we're part of a regional consortium, if you will, in Bergen County, 6 other districts. They're the consortium, and they put out that they actually had funds available through Art for the Homeless, and that we should apply for funds. So Dr. Sheridan did that. We followed up, and we actually had $45,000 covered of transportation costs that we're spending.
Yeah, that's great. Nice job.
And I'm really happy. She's really been working very hard on gathering more information about what's involved with being the homeless liaison. And throughout the state, including our county, we're seeing a spike in the numbers of students who are now qualifying as homeless who need these services. And so for us to be able to provide them, it's something morally you have an obligation, but also legally you're accountable as well. And it gets to be very expensive. And so any type of support we can get through the McKinney-Vento Act is certainly well received. And I'll put it out there publicly too. I really appreciate Anne Marie's work on this. I hear from her office the different webinars or other information sessions, but it's a critical need and one that we take very seriously. And then, as if I haven't spoken enough, you're going to get me for the Veterans Wall. And then, obviously, you know a lot more about the construction side of it, so I'll allow, Mr. Senek to add in anything as well. But the finishing touches are being done in advance of our November 17th dedication. I don't know if you want to just say anything about the finishing touches or.
So we're currently getting the signs that are going to be installed on the walls themselves, which are going to be the portraits of all the alumni veterans. Those are being manufactured right now. And we're going to have a 4x6 cast aluminum plaque, which is sort of like a title plaque that'll be on the wall, on the school wall behind the walls. And then we're also going to have committee plaques and donor plaques. And the donor plaques will again be cast aluminum, just like the one that's going on the school wall. And it will honor all the people that gave money, that gave their services in terms of material and labor, the contractors, and all the people that gave donations. So really, the only thing that's left to do is put up the signage, and all that stuff is being fabricated, and we'll be ready for the November 17th dedication.
All right, thank you. And just in regards to the dedication on the 17th, one of our alumni works with a group called the Liberty Warbirds, which is a group that brings Huey helicopters, which had actually been used in Vietnam, to different public settings. So they have what's called a static display, which is it's landed, rotors are no longer moving, and people can ask questions, can tour the helicopter and get a chance to actually see it up close. So we will have one of those landed, at least that's the plan, on the back field for the November 17th dedication. We're also in the process of inviting some dignitaries, as well as other guests. And then earlier today, I released a press release. I put it out to a few of the more prominent media outlets in our community, and hopefully we drum up a little extra interest. I think it's such a just wonderful project. I keep falling back on the words inspiring and incredible, and I think that those might be the most accurate. But how quickly this took place, I know. Mr. Bloomer, Mr. Senek, and I were part of the committee back in March or April, and people were talking about when we'd actually get it done. And having worked in schools for a long time, I was saying, well, if we look for like 2026 or 7 maybe, and here we are in 2024, and it's happening in November. So it's very, very exciting, and I'm really proud to be a part of it.
Any other items under FFA? Okay. We're going to turn over to policy, and we have a host of items. Ms. Dempsey, take it away.
Thank you. And Dr. Portis, I apologize, but I think 1 through 5 are primarily your items. Yes. And we can tag team on 6 and I'll take 7.
And for those of you who are enjoying the Mike Portis show, it shall continue. So for policy, Ms. Dempsey and I had a meeting in late September in which we reviewed several policies that either I had recognized needed to be addressed, or she had recognized to be addressed, or things that were just emerging. On the second one, since Mr. Shea has been kind enough to stay here, I'll give him an opportunity in opening to talk a little bit about the AI policy as well. The first one, though, is our organization chart. And this is something that we periodically have to update as positions change. And in this case, some of our positions that had changed were the supervisors of student services had become directors of student services. So that has to be appropriately recognized on the organizational chart. one thing that might strike some as odd is that the board secretary is listed as one entity while the business administrator is listed as another. Mr. Gibbs fills both those positions, but in his role as board secretary, he does actually answer to the Board of Education. And then as business administrator, better for worse, he has to answer to me, which works out very well. We work really well together. And then we had a couple other updates, such as adding security guards under Mr. Lucas's title. And one thing I'll put out there too, when you see this posted, Mrs. Ogg worked very hard on the formatting for this. She knows I'm a big fan of straight, clean lines, as well as colors that are easy to follow. So I know she collaborated with Mr. Shea. I think they used Canva. And I got a nod. So yes, they used Canva. So the presentation of it's going to be, I think, much more attractive and easy to follow.
Yeah, this is definitely a update and a much needed update and a better version of what's up there now. What's up there now looks like someone did it in Excel.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm excited about it, and I'll be honest, she worked really hard on it, and I will say people in the board office throughout the district are very good sports about some of my attention to detail. Like I still get people like, you really have forbidden the use of Arial? I'm like, yeah, I've forbidden the use of Arial. It's the worst font ever. But for this, I think it is important. It shows that we care, that we're precise, and it is very easy to follow. All right, and then our next item regarding policy is for our AI policy. Strauss Esme pushed something out regarding how they feel AI policies should be managed in districts. And when I first read through it, it felt a little bit loose to me. I felt like they were leaving things very open-ended. And upon deeper reflection and reading, I realized it's actually a really good idea because if you have a particularly rigid AI policy, you will be changing it probably every other meeting because the technology is changing so fast. So something that Mr. Shea is going to work on is setting up an AI team in the district that'll really help us understand what are our needs. And I don't know if I think you were voluntold to head the state group through NJASA, right? Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. And I'll just summarize because I know the microphone didn't pick up what you were saying. So NJASA, which largely services superintendents, set up a separate branch for tech supervisors, and Matt is of course part of that. And it wasn't my fault, but he was voluntold that he was going to be the co-chair for the AI group, which I think is great because it gives you a real in at the state level of what's coming up and what's coming out. And so he and I will be collaborating quite a bit in the policy. We'll run it through Ms. Dempsey as well as whoever succeeds her at the policy level. But we'll have a policy in place. But perhaps more importantly, we'll have an AI plan that will be a living document that will evolve with the needs of our staff, of our students, and really what the marketplace helps to dictate. I don't know if there's anything that you want to add about the AI policy that I haven't really touched on or. Yep. I agree. Yeah, and just to summarize what he was saying, if anybody's still tuned in, that it's going to give our teachers a clearer sense of this is what you can and can't do to harness the technology. And I love the term amorphous blob because that is what it seems like. There's so much to it that it is overwhelming. And so to help them see, okay, these are some digestible chunks, and there are 12 different options that are listed in the policy, and my note for the first 6 was that they afford us flexibility. Item 7 gets to the code of conduct implications. And then when it talks about improved list of AI platforms, that's where we desperately need to have a plan that can be fluid in its design, because what's really good today is probably going to be replaced by something in 3 months. And so we don't want to go chasing after things. We want to know, like, what is the best generative tool to use. And we also have to have considerations about what is safe for schools. Where is data being collected? Where is it being housed? Make sure that it's not being sold. And so that's a market that's still emerging, which is the AI for schools. I don't feel like there's a technology out there that I would trust to have a case manager write an IEP using AI. It just doesn't exist yet, because there's so many identifiers involved, and I don't want them getting outside our network. So we want to look towards that.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's what Matt was saying. For both FERPA and COPA are not mentioned. COPA is the Children Online Protection Act. Yep. And then FERPA has to do with protecting students' identities and records. So there's a long way to go, but I feel like we're going to make really important steps to get us moving in that direction.
So are we looking to have the policy and the plan kind of hashed out simultaneously? Like, we're not bringing the policy to the next meeting for any kind of a first reading, because there's still work we want to do on it, right?
Yeah, I don't think you're going to see a polished draft that I have any confidence in till December at the earliest.
Okay, great.
And it has to be supplemented with the plan. Without the plan, the policy is a waste of paper.
Yeah. Okay, because I do know in one part of the policy, it states that the plan will include proper citation and or documentation methods. And I would encourage us to think about using just documentation methods, or however we want to phrase that, in terms of communicating to the teacher that you've used an AI tool, because at least, as you said, it's going to change constantly, but the current whatever the word I'm looking for is that you don't cite AI because it is not human.
Yeah.
It's not something capable of generating original thought, and what you cite is original thought. And so it's not citation that you do for AI, but there should be communication to the teacher, some way of saying that you used this in preparation of your assignment.
Yeah, and I mean, I've heard enough horror stories about students using AI and turning in a document that had none of their original thought under their name. And the plagiarism policy of the respective institutions focused on taking the work or ideas of another person, but you're not taking the work or ideas of another person. And so we need to make sure that those very blurry, very gray areas are somehow clarified.
That's one thing I did like about the template for the plan, as well as the template for the policy, is that it took something that's somewhat nebulous and brought it into a place where it's got some boundaries to it.
Yeah.
And it's got some structure to it, so that people who don't understand it can start to understand it and see where these thoughts they're having can be put into little buckets. So it's something that's very complex can be broken down into a more simpler idea. So I thought it's a good start.
Yeah, and something I think is really important for us to keep at the foreground of our thinking too is we have something in our strategic plan called ensuring staff success. And if we can harness AI appropriately to help our staff members be more efficient in their work, if you have to generate a lesson plan, or if you have to generate something and you're good enough as a prompt engineer that you can get the work like that, you're saving time. And that's something that none of us has enough time for anything. So if we can create a culture here that embraces AI and recognizes it's going to help our kids, but it's also going to help our professionals, I think that'll help us really have powerfully supportive tool.
And I imagine at some point, a portion or version of the plan will need to be put into the student handbooks, right? We need
Yep.
to get that in there too.
Yep. Yeah, that was one of my notes too, is that so much of this has to connect back to what we put out annually in those handbooks. All right, the next couple, I'll be much quicker. Policy 5430, class rank. I was in a conversation and I started looking at this one. The red flag to me was when it said it was pages 1 of 2 and it's a 1-page policy. So the class rank one, there's just a lot that has to be tidied up in terms of language, presentation, and it just needs to be cleaned up. So the content itself is fine, but the phrasing was not up to caliber. At all. All right. Item 4, the electronic communications recording devices. Somebody had asked me, it might have actually been Ms. Dempsey, about our cell phone. No, it wasn't you, but somebody had asked about our cell phone policy. There really isn't one, which seems shocking based on the prevalence of cell phones, especially with the first iPhone come out in like 2007. Yeah. So like we're still relying on the ECRD, which has references that harken back to the era of pagers, which when I was starting out teaching in 97, the pager was the bane of existence. You had to be very worried about students having pagers, which I know sounds adorable now, but big deal in 1997. But we see the policy still is making references to that. It's like, I think we're okay with that one, guys. But we don't really have something specifically for cell phones. And so this is something that we should be collaborating with some of our partners, including Strauss Estimate, to figure out what do we need here. One thing I will put out there, I did reach out to the town health officer to ask if something for a long range project, if he might be interested in looking at partnering to examine the implications of cell phone use as a public health concern. And he's got other things in the hopper right now. So we don't even have a planned start date, but I've also reached out to a vendor called Smart Social that helps districts and communities manage concerns that emerge from smartphone or cell phone use. So anyway, this one, I have no real recommended actions other than to get the thought process going about how is it that we do want to manage cell phones. And there was the state memo that more or less said, you should really think about this. You don't have to, but you should think about your cell phone policies. We are covered in terms of cell phone use in our handbooks, but it'd be good to have something with a little more teeth in policy and get rid of the pagers.
Yeah, it was me who reached out to Ms. Dempsey because a parent had asked me. So I totally agree. We do have it in the handbook. I mean, obviously whatever this ends up looking like has to align. I was reading this and I was like, oh my gosh, they're talking about phones. I don't even call it a phone. Like if I was looking for this, like I wouldn't even know. You have to read every single policy. So I know this is probably going to take time to update. Maybe we can Band-Aid it and just somewhere in the title put phone in the interim with like some notation down the bottom that like this is in the process of being updated, just so at least it's easy for a parent to find. Because I was searching and I was like, I would never have found this if Ms. Dempsey hadn't been like, I think it's in here, but like, look at it. So
So the really weird thing is that we have a couple of different policies that touch on the uses of technology that are enabled by a smartphone, but nothing that is like the phone itself. So we have a social media policy, we have an acceptable network policy, we have this one. And actually the one that's here on the agenda really has to do with using it to record. Yeah. And so we have it, I think, in the teacher and the staff sections. And it's really more of a protection for the staff members to not be recorded against their will in the classroom. So yeah, so we probably need something. I'm interested to see when we go to workshop if people are presenting on this, because that memo did come out. There have been a couple webinars and there's been a lot of chatter in the local news as well about schools adopting different policies in terms of like not having your cell phone. And of course that raises a lot of questions and concerns as well. But I would not be surprised if we don't see something recommended from Strauss Estimate and NJSBA coming down within the next 6 months or so.
Yeah, they definitely have to be working on it. And then finally, from that cluster of the first 5, something that we realize we have on the books that is unnecessary is in our school district travel policy. You need not read through the first 19 pages, which I did, and I'm recommending not to do so. But on page 20, there is an item that brings up that somebody who is submitting for travel reimbursement, one of our staff members needs to submit evidence of ownership, which is the registration for a car, and insurance. There's nothing in OMB or from our auditor saying that you have to do that. And my take is if you don't need it, why ask for it? Especially too, because if we store the information, there's an inherent vulnerability there if ever we get hacked. So my recommendation is if you don't need it, get rid of it. And then one other item that I will recommend is that there is a set dollar amount listed in there for lunch. It lists $7, which I wish was still what it costs to get lunch. But I think that should be replaced with language about existing state and federal approved amounts. And we do have the revised pretty regularly, but the approved spending limits for meals for traveling. So if you want to know what's the approved amount for a dinner in Albuquerque, you can actually look that up. We provide, what is it?
GSA rate.
Yeah, the GSA rates. So I think that would be better to have in there than a hard and fast number, because we know the number is going to change. And that was even in my write-up, $7 worked in 2018, maybe. No, I don't. Yeah. I think, yeah, it's got to change. Yeah. Well, the good thing is we do adhere to the GSA rates, so we're good there. But I think our policy needs to be accurate for that. And then the next one, and I'm going to bounce it over to Ms. Dempsey, as well as pointing out to whoever just entered the back area of this room that there is an active meeting taking place, but that the spectator policy is something that came out from NJSIA, which is the athletic governing body in the state, but it came out over the summer, and we already started to assign tasks to different people about how we're going to respond to the policy, which has to be in place for next year.
Yeah, so it NJSIAA, and thank you for explaining what it is, because they don't even tell you what they stand for in their own letters. They're requiring that all member districts develop a policy for that's basically a spectator code of conduct. And this is to address the dramatic increases in issues that are happening at athletic events by spectators, towards referees, towards coaches, towards players, towards other fans. So there is a list of requirements in the policy, in their recommendations. I did a webinar through Ocean County SBA a couple weeks ago or a week ago, and they talked a bit about what the expectations are going to be. And they did mention that Strauss Esme is working on a policy draft that it will get out to districts. So we should have a baseline of something to start with. Some of the requirements are still being discussed because there are questions around if a parent is kicked out of one child's sporting event, does that mean they are also banned from the other child's sporting event? Those sorts of things are not really clear. One of the requirements is to, well, yeah, but it isn't spelled out, I think, in NJSIA's guidance. How long does it last? Like if it's a suspension, how long does it last? One of the requirements is that you will have to undergo an education piece in order to be admitted back into an event. And nobody has any idea how that's going to be managed or tracked. They've had suggestions for webinar things that you can make people do, but how are we tracking a spectator, right? Exactly. So I think those, yeah, like how are coaches, who is responsible for managing that? Those sorts of things are all still very fuzzy. And so a lot of districts are having these conversations, and hopefully Strauss Esme is considering these things as well. And NJSBA is obviously talking about it. So I think there's still more to come on this, but as Dr. Portis said, we've been on top of it since the summer. Mr. Silipina is on top of it, Mr. Hazler. So I think we'll be in good shape once to have something in place for the next school year. Any comments or questions? And I did send everybody the information from that webinar if you were interested in hearing more. So the last thing is also me, and that is the starting up kind of a routine review of policies. So I just went through our now updated list of the 0 section of our policies and pulled out 5 that hadn't been updated in at least 10 years, really just for regular review. However, in my initial look through backup, I wasn't looking very closely. And I realized that the 0131 we have in backup is not the one that's on our website, which is the one I had originally is like a 2013, but we have a 2020. So we did update that at some point in time. And the change I was going to propose is not in the 2021 version. So we're just going to table 0131 for now, and we'll come back to that. But 0132, the executive authority, nepotism, board member authority, and organization meeting, we're just put in there for you to read through. If nobody has any suggested changes for those, we will just note at the bottom that they were reviewed and reviewed on today's date, and then they're change the date on our spreadsheet. So did anyone have comments or questions on any of those policies?
I did not.
Thank you.
Well, me neither.
Thank you for giving us little short ones to begin with.
Anytime. All right, sounds good. So we will mark those 4 as reviewed, and then Dr. Portis, you and I can touch base on 0131. That's it for policy.
Okay, that brings us to our second opportunity for public comment. Members of the public may speak once for a maximum period of 5 minutes by the clock during this portion of the meeting. And during this portion of the meeting, the public can speak on any topic during the 5 minutes. If a public member raises a question, the question should be directed to the board president. And please remember to state your name and sign in before we begin.
John Nason, Sunset Road. Just a couple things, my own words first. I definitely want to congratulate you guys on your master board certification. I do appreciate the conversations, the effort, the time, everything you guys do. I was very happy that Charlene mentioned that you made the effort and did the 2-year work in 1 year. And I know you made the point a year ago that you wanted everyone up on the board with you to get that certification. So I'm glad she made that point at the meeting. I also think it was a good idea that when they shared the information about reduced lunches, that there was actually numbers in there for people's incomes. I would just suggest maybe a little more information about how long you need to be in hard times to qualify, like that process. Because if people are in hard times, they're not worried about researching all the legal ins and outs. If you have the information, I would put that in there for people. It may help them, or someone may read it and be like, that's my neighbor. Let me just go over there and tell them. You don't have to worry about this little piece of your life, right? So I would just make that suggestion. To piggyback on the tardiness, I know the first period thing that Dr. Portis had mentioned, and I know he loves data. So something he could watch if people are habitually late for the same class that only meets every 4th day, that may be a pattern that you may pick up on, like the kid really doesn't like the class. Where in the past, it was just they didn't want to go to school, period, or they couldn't get up on time. But now if you have 4 different classes in the morning and they're always late for one of them, it's just something else that may pop out if you look for it. And then for the STEM Academy considerations, with that option 2 with the different branches, I saw that there were electives in there. I know my son was in the STEM Academy and there was no electives, no choices to be made. you basically in 8th grade decided this is all I'm doing for 4 years. So that may help if kids know they have a little flexibility, that may help them commit to it. And it also looked like even if the student chose the wrong path, if there's elective space in there, they could change their path. Because a point that was made at the middle school presentation, whatever it was, 7 years ago now, was even if a kid does an academy in high school, it's just as valuable for a student who finds out this is not the field for me to find it out here in high school for free than to go to college and find out 2 years in, this is just not what I want to do with my time. So I think that was good also. And as a neighbor, I've spoken to other neighbors and the traffic is different. It's only been a month, but the traffic is different. Whatever it is, I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know. And then as finance for the high school music parents, I got a few things. Today, the new music in the performing arts class that Mr. Arnold has started this year. They're doing Willy Wonka show. It's going to travel the district, perform for all the schools, and they're going to do one show here at night. Their auditions are done. Their rehearsal started today. That's all student directed, coordinated, everything. It's a class. They run the whole thing and learn all aspects of performing arts in the meantime. Next Monday, the students are off, but the Noctives will go and do their recording for the ICHSA audition submissions to get accepted into the competitions this year. Our marching band senior night is this Friday before the football game. So we'll be recognizing them this week. And the marching band students, they're also grateful to be able to attend the homecoming dance this year. It's always a competition Saturday for them. They've moved the dance for whatever reason, but they're grateful to be able to go to that. I'd like to, I can't thank everyone, but I want to thank a couple people for helping with our home competition. Parks and Rec and the DPW for setting up the tents out there. We wish we needed them for shade, but there were plenty of people hiding under them to get out of the rain. Any kind of purchases they needed to do, they were out of the rain. It was good. It's much better than those little pop-up canopies that they don't last an hour in weather like that. I want to thank our guests from the township and the district who came out and trophy presenters. I also wanted to make a point to thank Mr. Curtis, who reached out to our group looking for ways to get his band students to come out on a Saturday. And we worked with him and we came with mostly the extra credits, the motive. We also gave him a free meal. I mean, so we tried to really entice the offer there for them, but we ended up having like 36 kids from the band come out. And hopefully they can meet some of the kids here and stay involved in music. I know I'm pretty sure it's still required in middle school, but we want to encourage them staying involved when they move up here to the high school. And then I just had there were a few bumps, I guess you would call them, for our home show. Some of them were like a lot of confusion with the logistics of the property, what we could use, couldn't use, rehearsal areas. And it's not a big pivot for us, but we're required to submit maps to the organizer because these schools, they come here, they don't know our facility. And we need to present them with a package of here's your practice area, Because if they're here for 2 hours, they expect to practice for 2 hours. They don't want to be finding me for 30 minutes to find out where can we practice. So we have to work out some kind of point person and some kind of meeting with the district before our home show. Everything's been spelled out on the facilities request in the past, but this year it just did not go good for whatever reason. So we had that. And then we also had an issue with overtime being denied. So we didn't have staff here to help us. So we had parents in the school trying to find and move tables, chairs, things like this that typically will have help from staff locating them, never mind moving them, for hours during our setup time. And we cannot wait because we're contractually obligated to have the facility ready before performance times for US bands to give those schools a fair chance to rehearse and be set up and everything. And so we just had to do it ourselves. I guess if it can't be, if the overtime can't be set aside for our group for this function with 6-7 months notice, then we'll have to have a conversation about what it'll cost us to have someone here, which wasn't offered, but for what we spend on the day, it may be worth it just to make it a smoother day for us. And then there was one staff member, right? We always post parents at the parking lots starting 6, 7, 8 o'clock in the morning because other groups will be showing up. They have games either here, away, sometimes an SAT day, but we have someone here just to have the conversation like, when will you be back? When will we be moving your car? The back lot is full of tractor trailers, box trucks, pickup trucks with trailers. Logistically, we need the entire parking space to move those vehicles around. So one car in one spot in the wrong place, and we lose the whole lot. I mean, you're talking about moving trucks and trailers. The front lot, dozens of school buses. If you have one car, you can't box them in, and the buses stay, right? You can park the buses side by side. They all trap each other in. It just takes one car. So we always have conversations with people, and if they're going to be back in time, then we try to have them park in certain rows, but we'll let them park. And one staff member had some unfriendly words for the parent. I don't think it was necessary. And I was even surprised because the marching band is in the athletic department umbrella that the teams wouldn't even be aware that the competition was happening on that day. So maybe in the future, the athletic department can just notify all the other teams who have a game that day. We can work it out ahead of time where people are going to park, just so we can meet our obligations without having to worry about contacting a parent to get the kids' keys, to move a car, something like that. That's all.
Thank you. I don't really have anything to add to it. I thought the show was really good. It's unfortunate some of the things that you brought up wasn't aware of them. I'm sure that in the future though we can have good communication if that wasn't the case. Because I know that our admin staff's always willing to help. So
Yeah, anytime there's an issue, just go to the people at school. Like they'll make sure it's addressed. obviously you can't go back in time and change something if it's already occurred, but there are ways of preventing it from ever happening again. But your legacy will carry.
It's just too big to just. Again, that's why I'm coming here to have all the conversations. It's just too big to not have the conversation. Big moving parts. It's not fair to the other schools. I'm here to that issue.
Okay, that brings us to unfinished business. Anybody have any unfinished business? New business.
I do have one item for new business. Tomorrow, there's going to be a wellness fair hosted. This is something that's part of a joint venture we're working on. The Rotary had reached out to me as well as Lake Park, as well as a few service providers and healthcare services. And really, the Rotary wanted to focus on doing something to help support mental health and wellness for young people. So what's taking place tomorrow night is a culmination of a lot of work. It's taken place over a year. We moved towards focusing on the stigma-free initiative on our end, and I'm excited that this is becoming a reality. And anybody who wants to show up tomorrow night, there's no charge. Just a lot of good cheer, and I understand there are some incentives offered to kids who show up as well.
Anybody else? Board member announcements?
Yeah, I'll start. I love the idea that Mr. Arnold is bringing the Willy Wonka show to our other schools. I love that. I think that's fantastic. I don't think that's something we've done before, and I think the elementary kids will love that. So I attended the band competition. Pequannock band was absolutely amazing as always. Not only was the performance fantastic, but just the set design was outrageous. It was just very, very fun to watch. I really enjoyed the other schools. The way that they cheered for our kids was fantastic. There was a lot of our own students, not only the middle school students, but there were the football team. A lot of the football players were there to cheer them on too. So it was really fun to watch. Super proud of them as always. I'd like to give a special thank you to Mr. Senek and Charlene Peterson for really organizing all of the classes for us to complete the master board certification. That took a lot of time. It took a lot of wrangling of board members, and it is very much appreciated because we did get it done very, very quickly. And it was, training was very effective and super helpful. So thank you for that. I attended PV and PTH back to school nights were, of course, amazing. Salute to Service game on Saturday was very cool. So great to see all the veterans from that class. Actually, one of the Pequannock graduates from, I think, 64 or something like that, she won the 50-50 and gave it back to the kids. So that was really awesome. Just a reminder to wear pink or something that supports breast cancer, because some of you may not have pink, but for our next meeting on the 28th. Also, CPAC is hosting a parent forum this Wednesday, the 9th at 7 p.m. It is a Google Meet. You can find the information on the website as well as Facebook. I think that's all I have. Thank you.
I can go. So I too was able to catch the tail end of the marching band competition. Sorry for everything that happened, but I will tell you, you would have never known because the volunteers were amazing and everybody was happy to be there regardless of the weather. Our band, of course, killed it, and it's always fun to go. And it's just crazy that the weather is always the same every single year, except one year it was 90 degrees. I remember that. It was, yeah.
Does anybody have like a farmer's almanac or something?
All right, I got a couple. Yesterday, I attended the Eagle Scout ceremonies for Sean and Ryan Moore. Sean is an EMT in town and rebuilt the wood deck around the fire pit at Greenview Park, which definitely was needed. And Ryan built a bocce ball court at PV Park. So we're going to plan to honor both of those fine young men at a future board meeting, as we always do. And I just want to say on behalf of the board, as well as myself, congratulations again to Sean and Ryan Moore. Okay. With that, we do have a reason to go into executive session tonight where we will discuss attorney-client privileged matters. No action will be taken. We will adjourn from there. Our next meeting will be October 28th here at the high school. Is there a motion to go into executive session?
Motion.
Second. Second. All in favor? Any opposed? All right. Good night, everyone. Thank you.